In keeping up with every latest aspect of the issues surrounding that of Luigi Mangione, one of the issues that we have to talk about is this notion of whether he was the product of MKUltra. Now, for those people who are not hip, who are not a member of the conspiratorium, those of you who might not be familiar with what we do here on this channel and what we have considered to be relevant in terms of history, MKUltra is a very, very important and critical aspect of our worldview. During the early period of the Cold War, when we were convinced that communists had discovered some kind of a drug or psychological technique to kind of Manchurian candidate us in order to control human minds, the CIA began its own investigation, its own version called MKUltra, for Mind Control Ultra. And it opened in the 1950s until the 1960s, and it was created and run by a chemist by the name of Sidney Gottlieb. Now, a lot of folks, including journalist Stephen Kinzer, who spent years investigating the program, called the operation the most sustained search in history for techniques of mind control and brainwashing and menticide. And some of his experiments were covertly funded at, of course, universities and think tanks and research outlets, and they were conducted in American prisons and detention centers in Japan, Germany, and the Philippines. And many of the unwitting subjects endured psychological torture, physical torture, electroshock, high doses of LSD. It was brutal. In fact, it was reported that Gottlieb wanted to create a way to seize control of people's minds, as he realized it was a two-part process. And this is what Kinzer brings up. The first was to blast away and chip away and destroy the existing mind. And the second was a way to replace or to insert a new mind into that which is now the null set. Nobody got too far on that second aspect, but as far as destroying the minds, they were spot on with that one. And what's been so interesting about this, people have suggested that this is still going on right now. And if you go and look at this, you will hear about people like Ken Kesey, who volunteered for experiments and taking LSD. He loved it. He, of course, the author of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Robert Hunter, the lyricist for the Grateful Dead, went on to become a great purveyor and proponent of the LSD culture, thanks to Mr. Gottlieb. So it's interesting, the CIA brought LSD to America unwittingly. They actually created one of the most incredibly ironic aspects. They fueled and manufactured a generational rebellion that sought to destroy everything the CIA did. And you know, and I know, and we're not going to go into the depths of here, but you can say things like, Tavistock in the 60s and how a lot of these folks from Jim Morrison to Frank Zappa, they all had some kind of parentage that was involved in military escapades, and how there was this unique kind of a concatenation of various, we'll get to that later on. But Whitey Bulger was one of the victims of this. Ted Kaczynski. You can go on and on and on. Now, the issue of this is, will we ever get a clear answer? The answer is no. It is interesting how this young man, after this back surgeries, and he kind of like took off and got into perhaps allegedly maybe some psychedelic avenues of experimentation and the like. Who knows? Who knows? But the interesting thing to note, irrespective of this, is the fact that the more we learn about him and the more we learn about this case, the more fascinating it becomes. The left, completely bereft and devoid of any heroes whatsoever, now seek some weird kind of anti-hero in Mr. Mangione, Italian for big eater or glutton. I find that kind of interesting. It's so interesting. They're looking at every aspect. The McDonald's patron and McDonald's franchise in Altoona now is being subject to hatred because you dared to rat out Mr. Mangione, and which, by the way, is very similar to how when Arnold Schuster, and I did a piece on this, ratted out and exposed, if you will, Willie Sutton, whose famous line was, "Why do you rob banks, Willie?" He says, "Well, that's where the money is." Well, anyway, the weird anti-hero, the same way we found interest in Bonnie and Clyde and John Dillinger and Al Capone and John Gotti, and how some women found people like Ted Bundy and the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez, and the Menendez brothers. This is again, speaking about mind control. It's a wonderful, again, I hate to use a word, but a concatenation, a blending of so many subtexts and issues that are a part of this. One last word on MKUltra. I have no reasons to verify this, but I wouldn't be surprised in recent history if we found two instances where either MKUltra-esque or menticide practices may have been involved, and that is the assassination of John Lennon and that of Robert Kennedy Sr., because the Sirhan story makes no sense for a variety of reasons if you just research that. So think about this, my friends. Please subscribe to the channel. Understand something, interestingly enough, that 87% of those individuals who watch this channel, do not subscribe, and that is a travesty. Don't make me menticide you. Don't make me do something that will regret. So please subscribe right now. Like this video, hit that little button so you'll be notified of live streams and new videos. And whatever you do, I beg, beseech, import you, and ask of you to comment as you see fit.